put it out in 2014, so I think it was going in the studio probably 2013 or so, a year before. And saying, well, I don't know, might as well see what, I've never been in a studio before, let's see. And he recommended that one. He played drums on the whole record. And, kind of worked out and put it out. Some people listened. I was kind of surprised that anyone would really want to listen to any of my, BS that I had to say, but they did. So that was
the intersection of good drinks, good music, and good times. This is Hops and Spirits Bar Conversations.
Welcome back. I hope you're off to a great start this week. I hope you're having a good week. If not, hopefully this episode can cheer you up a little bit. We got a great conversation with Rodney Rice. His third album dropped this past Friday. We talked to him a little bit before it came out. It's a fun one. But before we get to that, up next is our tasting notes as we continue our grilling series. This time, though, grilling and beer, because is there a better combination, with Kevin Patterson. Enjoy.
Did you know Hops and Spirits is more than just this podcast? Check out hopspirits.com for our latest episode release, past episodes, interviews with interesting folks in the alcohol industry, and so much more. Just go to hopspirits.com. Feel free to wait until this podcast is done.
Joining us here once again on Tasting Notes, he's Lexington's second favorite bartender, but he's our first favorite bartender. How about that?
Thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate the support.
Welcome back, Kevin Patterson. He's the Cicero National Beer Judge. He's also the manager of the Beer Trap Craft Beer Store and Bar in Lexington, Kentucky. And Kevin, we're going to talk today. We've talked a little bit about seasonal beers that you can expect in the summer, what people are buying. But, summer is basically here or getting close to being here. And one thing that I think goes so well with beer is, grilling some food and being outside.
Oh, definitely. Everybody's chomping at the bit to fire up that grill and get outside and hurt themselves and hopefully make something that's tasty to compensate for it all. And in doing so, they want to open something. They want to open up a beer. Not many people fire up a grill and say, let's pour this dainty glass of wine. Or not many people is like, let's fire up this grill and let's make a Negroni, Not people is like, oh, let's do a fine scotch with this. No, it's beer. People like beer. And so whenever you're firing up the grill, there's a couple different things to think about whenever it comes to that. Everybody's got a Blackstone nowadays, and everybody's got their smokers. And so everybody wants to kind of hang out around these things as they're firing up and getting going. There's just something innate about that. But, a lot of times whenever we talk about beer and food pairings, we talk about what flavors match. But let's talk about what moments match a little bit. One thing I like about, go ahead and fire up that grill. As it's getting warmed up, you're not eating anything yet. You may not want that bigger beer that goes with that bigger food. So start out with something small. Start with something like a lager. I know one of the beers that kind of stay in my fridge mostly is that Stone Buenaventura. It's a very light Mexican-style lager. It's decorated with a little bit of sea salt, a little bit of lime. And, it's just fine. If I'm on a clean palate and if I haven't had anything in a while, then that beer suits me just fine. It's kind of a warm-up session. Mm-hmm. Later on I'll get into the IPAs or I'll get into something a little bit darker to suit those meats that we're grilling out. But to start out with that moment kind of light, because when you first fire up that grill and you're going to be at that thing for an hour or two, if you're going to be smoking, you're going to be at that maybe 6 or 8 hours, maybe longer. You don't need to jump into the heavy stuff early. That's just emergency room waiting to visit. So you don't want to do that. And so get something kind of lighter, something kind of easy. And I don't have a problem grabbing something on the lighter spectrum that way. The Edelstoff by Augustiner, that's my favorite German lager, and that's a staple in my fridge. And as the spring turns into summer a little bit, you're going to find more and more of those sitting on the grill when I take pictures and brag to my friends about what I'm cooking or anything like that. So those are beers that's going to be in the background, and that's what I'm going to be starting out with. Now, you get into a little bit deeper into the session, all of a sudden you're starting to make things. You really got to think about what foods you're making and what beers you kind of want to go with it. Well, I tell people when it comes to beer and food pairing, it's very simple. Now, the Cicerone program, they have a lot of books that kind of talk about, what it takes to make a proper beer and food pairing. But in my estimation, it really takes just 3 things to think about. And those 3 things is, number 1, intensity, number 2, resonance, and number 3, contrast. So when it comes to intensity, just make sure that whatever you're cooking isn't going to overwhelm what you're drinking and vice versa. So if you're going to be cooking hamburgers, don't go for a big barley wine. That's too big. But don't stick with that Pilsner either because that's too small. So stick with something in between, something, that's going to have the intensity that's kind of going to match. That amber ale is going to be just fine. That Wessex amber is perfect for that. Hot dogs are not a bad option there either. Wheat beers sometimes with some of the summer fare, like cedar plank salmon. You want to do that on the grill. That's popular. You got those summer salads coming about. Wheat beers, Belgian wits, those do real well. Wheat beers, I really like Weinstefaner Hefeweiss beer. Whenever it comes to the wits, I really like St. Bernardus wit really well, or Avery White Rascal. Those are great options for that. The second thing I want you to think about is that resonance. In other words, think about what flavors are on the grill versus which ones are in the beer. So if you're looking at the meat, you're looking at some sort of caramelization, that hardiness of the meat, and those marry up really well with that same kind of characteristics of the grains in like an amber ale or maybe a brown ale. Because really, what you do in the brewing process, you're developing those grain flavors in the same way you're developing those food flavors on the grill. And so one is going to marry up real well with the other. You get some sweetness from the char that matches the sweetness in the malt. They marry up real well together, and one never overwhelms the other if you keep the intensity about the same. The other thing I want you to think about is contrast. And I like the contrast aspect pretty well because I like to think of it as a story. The food is going to tell a story, but it may not tell the whole story. We've watched a bunch of Star Wars stuff, and we know that there's a lot of holes in the Star Wars sagas, right? Well, food's the same way. So food, whatever you're preparing, is probably going to tell a lot of the story, but it's not going to have everything. So what you look to do is what is in the beer that helps complement what the food left out. So there you're looking at something like, is there a bitterness in the beer that kind of offsets the sweetness in the food? They can resonate real well like that. Is there a fruitiness in one that doesn't resonate to the other? Do you think they would marry up together? So think about those three things. It's not that hard to do. One thing I love to do is encourage people just to get out there and play with beer and food. A couple reasons why is because unlike the wine world and maybe the bourbon world, your opportunity for disaster is not as great. In other words, you can pair a lot of things together, and even though the beer may not necessarily make the food taste better, and the food may not make the beer taste better, your chances of wrecking the whole session is not that great at all. So your leadway to experiment and play is good. Second reason I tell people to experiment a little bit is beer's pretty cheap. That word's still out. So you can experiment with a lot of $1.50 beers, and take a chance. If it doesn't work, well, at the end of the day, you've got alcohol and your belly's full. So it's pretty much a win-win all the way around. So have courage, buy some things, try it out. But as long as you stick with those three things, what intensity matches, what resonance kind of plays off each other, and what contrast can you look to fulfill the story. You do those three things, you can't really go wrong.
Well, and the other thing to remember is I don't know about if this happens to you, but usually if I'm by the grill, for some reason, those beverages go down a whole lot quicker than when I'm at other places. So pacing yourself might be a good idea.
Well, all I can figure is you're out in the sun and it evaporates the beer faster. That's what's happening. People don't know this, but it happens very, very fast. So you have to make sure you have a lot of extra beers on the side in case that happens to you. You'll have plenty replenished with.
I like it. That is great advice all around, whether it's those extra beers on hand or how to pair properly, grilling and beer. And I really like how you went at that with the different moments, because you can definitely pair foods, but like you said, at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end of the night are all vastly different things.
You can. And keep in mind, after the dinner's over, it doesn't mean that you have to turn the grill off. You got s'mores coming up. You have a little campfire out back, those little fire pits that a lot of people have anymore. Make sure you have some bigger, bolder stouts available so you can wash down those marshmallows and graham crackers. You have something that matches and also meets the intensity of those big sweet desserts there too. By that time, the sun's probably going down and it's getting a little chilly. You may be reaching for the hoodie. And so you can handle a big beer at that point. So don't discount those big beers just because summer's rolling around.
I love it, Kevin, and thank you for the knowledge as always.
You're very welcome, Jonathan. Happy to do it.
Check out Hops and Spirits on social media at Hops Spirits, all one word, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also find Hops and Spirits on YouTube and at hopspirits.com.
Joining us here for our conversation, he's a country artist, singer-songwriter. He's got his self-titled third album coming out on May 19th, which by the time this drops will be out. Please welcome in Rodney Rice.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, doing good. Can't complain.
Now, this is bar conversation, so I got a very difficult question to start off with. Anything good in your glass tonight?
I got Weller 12 in the glass tonight. So.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yep. What about
since
you?
You're out in,
what was your choice?
Well, since you're out in Colorado, I decided to go with a little 291.
Oh, okay, yeah. Nice.
That little Colorado rye. I'm a big rye guy, so figured I'd pop that bad boy and see what it's all about.
Yeah, yeah. Nice.
Now I've heard you've got a decent bourbon collection, and if you're drinking some Weller 12, I assume that is correct.
Yeah, you're not going to give my address away in this.
No.
Like, just leave it somewhere in Colorado. Yeah, we got a couple hundred bottles in various stages of working through 'em, you know, and lots of problems, but bourbon's not one of them.
Now, I was going to say, obviously with a collection like that, is your wife okay with all of that?
Oh yeah,
or do you have to do some special chores on occasion?
Oh no, she's kind of instigates that. She grew up in Kentucky in Lexington.
Really?
Yeah.
That's where I'm based.
Yeah, I know. We'll have to connect one time out there. You know, go to the races. You know,
Absolutely,
He wrapped
absolutely.
up, though, I guess, right? Didn't it? I think it just finished.
It just wrapped up. Although we, since we're, like I said, recording this a little bit beforehand, we'll be there for the Derby up on the hill and having some fun this weekend. So
Yeah.
always a good time out there.
Yeah. I've yet to make it to the Derby. I've been to Keeneland a couple times, but never the Derby. Not yet. One of these days.
I've been to Churchill, not for the Derby. We've done a couple Mother's Days out there, which have been pretty cool. I don't think we're going to be able to pull that off this year, but it's a totally different experience than Keeneland.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Now, obviously being a bourbon guy, I got to ask this too. What's your favorite style? Are you just a straight bourbon, a Tennessee whiskey guy, a rye guy, or do you just like them all?
I like them all, really. I like them all. I mean, I like the Dickel Bottle and Bond. You know,
That's a good one.
if I could just have one endless supply, it would probably be Elmer. You know,
I like it.
but you know, I like the ryes too, and you know, Colorado's got some the bourbons out, you know, whiskeys out here, so yeah, I got a pretty broad palate, I guess you could say.
And it seems like since you said they're in stages, I'm guessing you're a guy that does enjoy opening the bottles, enjoying a pour, and sharing them with some friends.
Oh yeah. I mean, if we haven't opened it, it's just because we haven't opened it yet, you know, and if we didn't finish it, we just, you know, didn't have enough people to finish it then. Yeah,
Now-
we're not collectors and hoarding. We like to open it and share and enjoy with friends and family and what have you, you know.
Now, do you have, obviously you mentioned you got a collection. Do you have a nice bar set up? How's this? Because I don't. In my house, I don't have enough room for all that.
Well, we had a big cabinet deal, and then that got it was kind of a dog hair magnet, you know. So we put in some floating shelves, and then I had to put a lot of the bottles in the basement because we reduced our display space, you know. And so I got a lot of bottles in the basement and storage. So, you know, yeah.
I like it. A little dust on the bottle action, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
Now you do dabble in some music too. Were you always into music, or did that kind of come later on in life? How did that all come about?
Yeah, I mean, I always was into music, you know, and you just think from older family members, you know, older siblings, grandparents, uncles, stuff like that. You know, there was always music around, always listening to music, making up like, you know, my own words to songs if I, you know, couldn't remember, that kind of thing, you know, as a kid. I definitely made a choice to learn guitar and pick that up. And I was probably junior high, early, you know, seventh grade or something like that, maybe, when I started kind of picking around on guitar. But it's always been there ever since, you know, just something that I've always done, and at this point, it's just a part of my DNA of, you know, who I am, what I do. So it was never really a conscious effort or like a decision to be a musician. More, I mean, it was definitely a decision to start recording, putting it out in more of a professional display, or presentation, you know. But I'm still trying to figure that out, you know.
Now, have you learned a few more than a couple chords? Because I remember reading that's all you could play at the beginning.
Yeah, I got. I mean, I stay down around first position, you know. Pretty much. That's kind of my. That's where all the necks wear on my guitars, you know.
Now you grew up in West Virginia. Where'd you grow up in the good old Mountain State?
Morgantown, you know, the drinking town with the college sports problem.
So did you grow up in Morgantown or just outside of Morgantown?
Inside and outside the, you know, I mean, sometimes I lived inside the city limits, sometimes outside, you know, up the hall or up the mountain or whatever. But spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house there, and they lived outside the city limits. You know, mom lived in the city, so it was kind of in and out, both, you know, good mix of the college town growing up, you know.
In the hollers of West Virginia. Now,
yeah.
Obviously that's like right on the Mason-Dixon line. See, I was born above the Mason-Dixon line in Weirton,
Okay.
West Virginia. So,
Okay.
but you being right there on the border there and kind of in that college town, but obviously not far from the mountains, what impact did that have on you and just your music and life?
Yeah, you know, that's a good point. I didn't know you're from Weirton. No, that's awesome. Small world. You know, Morgantown, like I said, is college town, so you had the diversity there of the town. But I also started paddling kayaks at a young age and working on the river as a raft guide, safety boater, and all those rivers around you know, Western Maryland, Northern West Virginia, Southwest PA, and you know, so with that would take you out way into the hollers, you know, and so I was kind of even, you know, like I said, in the city with some, and then you know, going out in the woods and running rivers and stuff outside, and it's just more diversity in that too. I mean, being in the college town, but then also going out, you know, and interacting with folks that you know, have a little different way of life than in the city. I mean, Morgantown is a pretty small city compared to, you know, but yeah, it just offered more diversity and you know, experiences, meet more people, especially with the river scene. I mean, you know, the trips, you're meeting new folks every day and learning how to communicate with them. I mean, if they're in your raft, you're stuck with them all day. So you might as well figure it out, you know. And I think that helped with the, you know, I didn't realize it at the time, but now looking back, I think that really helped with, you know, my ability of performing on stage, you know, and reading the room and reading people and just being able to figure out a way to connect somehow, you know, because, you know, we're doing this thing, so we might as well figure it out.
Now, obviously, if you're rafting, did you ever head down south and hit the New and
Oh
the
yeah,
Gauley
I go down and do the Gauley. Yeah. I never worked down there, but I go down there in Gauley season, and you know, usually hit the New River a couple times a season, and definitely would get down there for Gauley season. Loved it, beautiful.
Yeah, I never had the courage to do that because we lived my wife and I lived in Beckley. For a good little while, we'd head up to Fayetteville to eat at Pies and Pints and some of those places,
Oh, yeah.
but
Yeah.
never could get me out on a raft.
Yeah. It's a different view of the canyons, that's for sure. When you're down there looking up out of them, you know.
Absolutely,
But,
and then obviously if you're into music and you're getting all these different things being in West Virginia, because obviously folks don't know there's a lot of radio stations that you can kind of pick up sometimes when you're on top of those mountains. What were some of your favorite artists growing up that had an impact on you?
I mean, there's the easy, the ones you always hear, like the Bob Dylan and Willie Nelson, John Prine. I think, I remember my older sister turned me on to Sun Volt when I was pretty young, Uncle Tupelo, and then later Sun Volt and Wilco. So definitely, yeah, Uncle Tupelo, the Super Suckers. I was really into them too. Of course, the classic country got Hank and George Jones and the like and what have you. But yeah, I think that's probably a good mix of it. Seems like I know I've seen Dylan a bunch. Same with John Prine a bunch of times, and yeah, that's probably about it. I mean, there's a bunch, but those are the easy ones that come off the top of mind.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, it was a good time to be listening and enjoying music. I mean, just to be able to do that. But like you said, your sister took you to a couple of those concerts, or you were able to get to some of those too, right?
My first concert I went, was John Prine, and my older sister took me to, and it was in Morgantown at the Creative Arts Center. So Morgantown was big enough with the college there. You'd have folks would come in, so you could get really 2 or 3 places in town. They either did the Coliseum, the Creative Arts Center, or one of the joints downtown. Yeah, I remember it distinctly. We had tickets to the very last row, which it worked out pretty good because then we could stand up and not, bother anybody.
But those are good memories.
12, maybe after 12, I think. I can't recall exactly. It's definitely young, early. It was impactful to see him. He had the band. He did the solo, a few songs solo, and brought the band back out. It was great. Yeah.
I was gonna say those are cool memories that you'll always be able to have, and like you said, obviously, like, music wasn't exactly kind of the career path you saw right at the beginning. So you went to school, you worked on that degree at Morgantown. I'm sure a few other things in Morgantown, but you got that geology degree, and ended up down in Texas of all places.
Yeah, I went to school after I traveled around working on rivers. Kind of just got tired of eating Pringles and trail mix, so I did that for a few more. I had that diet for a few more years while I was going to school, and I just connected with geology. I think through rivers, took the geology class to fulfill the science credit, right, and a lot of the rivers they're talking about, I just immediately I was like, well, I've paddled that one and what have you, and I just kind of went into after graduation, just kind of immediately started working on rigs. Worked in a mine for a few months, then mainly been above ground. Besides that, and all over West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Wyoming, Texas. It's that kind of is how I got in the recording studio. It was just in between rigs. Jason McKenzie, who played drums for Billy Joe Schaefer, set me up with a studio in Austin, which is where I recorded the first two albums. But I kind of just put the album out. I put the first album out thinking, well, I just got all these songs I've been writing for my whole life at that point, and I was 20. Put it out in 2014, so I think it was going in the studio probably 2013 or so, a year before, and saying, well, I don't know, might as well see what. I've never been in a studio before. Let's see, and he recommended that one. He played drums on the whole record, and kind of worked out and put it out. Some people listened. I was kind of surprised that anyone would really want to listen to any of my BS that I had to say, but they did. So that was encouraging and kind of unexpected, I guess.
I was gonna say, so is that kind of what pushed you to be like, okay, maybe this is something? Maybe it's something more than just a way to get some thoughts out.
Yeah, I never really. I mean, I always, like I said, the music was always there. It was something I did. I mean, traveling around paddling, carrying always guitar with me. River scene, there's always people were busting out instruments and jamming on the porches and the river scene. So it was always something I did and enjoyed. I just never really. I was always writing, I just never really thought, man, I need to put this out and present this, formally to the world. And then I did, and people were kind of listening, and they liked it, and I was like, well, I guess this is, took me like a couple albums before I really considered myself a songwriter. It's still kind of like, I don't know, I just what I do, It's like sitting around picking with my cousin and writing songs at grandma's house is like, I guess that makes me a songwriter,
Well, don't sell yourself short. Don't sell yourself short. Now, obviously, though, at some point you ended up in Colorado, and like you said, I'm pretty sure it was for a lady, right?
Oh yeah, my wife is from. She grew up in Lexington, but she was born in Colorado. So we relocated here in 2018. Yeah. So
and obviously there's a pretty good music scene out there too. And what's it been like to kind of be out there and then go at this full time? Because eventually that's you were like, okay, I guess people like me. Maybe I'll give it a try.
yeah. It's it's just I guess. Oh man, I don't know. Just kind of just happened. Like I said, it still really wasn't a decision. It was like one day I just decided to, do it. It's just one day I just didn't have any other jobs. I mean,
by default, you were a musician.
yeah, pretty much. I guess that's. I guess that's the straw that makes it full time. But no, I mean I've always gone after it. It's to totally supplement your whole livelihood with music. It's a lot of work. Any of the musicians will tell you that, and some of them, some folks make a lot more at it than others, but. Whether whatever the circumstances are that allows some to be fortunate at that and have less side hustles than others. It's I think any musician will tell you it's a full-time hustle, regardless. So but it's enjoyable.
Well, and like I said, it's cool to see kind of what you've been able to do, and obviously when you're writing those songs and things like that, what's that process like for you? Even though you're not a songwriter per se, what's it like putting that out there?
I guess I am a songwriter, but
because is that personal experiences? Is it ideas? How does the process kind of work for you?
Yeah, it's definitely things that have an impact on me. If it's something that directly happens to me or something that, happens to someone I'm close to, that's close enough, or just observational that, impact me. You can see stuff on, you can read the newspaper or anything, any kind of media has an effect on you, whether it be firsthand or once or twice removed. I think that's kind of the source of it. Sometimes I sit down and I just kind of write the whole song, easy peasy, no problem, start to finish. I think that's kind of more often than not is not the case. You know, it doesn't happen like that all the time, unfortunately. I kind of keep little phrases and melodies on, notebooks, on phone recordings, voice memos. I got hundreds of those things on my phone all the time. It's ridiculous. And sometimes I sit down and go through and do like an inventory of, start trying to organize them and figure what needs to go where and group them. And same thing with little notes and phrases and little scrapbooks. Traveling is really good for me, for writing, whether it's just windshield time by myself, driving somewhere on a long drive, and you kind of just have the music off and you're just listening to the road underneath you, and so that's really inspiring. I've written a lot of songs just driving from cross country or wherever. It's a mix of all at once, and then kind of hodgepodging things together in a smorgasbord of experiences throughout the years.
Well, and I think your latest or your lead single off of the latest album, your self-titled album, Rabbit Ears Motel, came from your honeymoon and from your wife. Is that kind of how it worked?
Yeah, we got married up in Steamboat Springs, which is kind of like north central Colorado. It's a little ski town there. And actually in 1836 was part of the Republic of Texas. I just kind of learned that the other day, so that was pretty interesting. But we got married up there and spent the week there with immediate family, hanging out, and but always we selected that spot just because we would camp there when we were coming through, or go fishing there and biking, mountain biking and stuff. So we just figured we just got married there alongside of a county road, unmaintained county road deal, and spent the week there. And we were leaving, and my wife just said, the Rabbit Ears has this iconic neon sign, right? It's pretty retro. And she said, you should write a song about, you got to write a song about this place. And I just started kind of working on it on the drive home, just like coming up with different things. And it all references the town, every verse is tied to the town and the area there. So yeah, that's how it started. And that's that was kind of we got married in when we moved up here in 2018. So I kind of just chipping away at it. I had the other album that I was trying to get finished and put out, which went out in 2020, and then the whole everything happened there, which gave me the time, I guess, to reach out to folks in Nashville, to a studio I always wanted to work out of. And I was thinking, well, if I'm going all the way to Nashville, I might as well have more than one song, So I went in with 3 songs, and then went on to West Virginia, stopped back in Nashville, recorded the 4th, and then went back to Nashville and did the remaining 5 and wrapped up the album. So kind of it escalated rather quickly, from one single.
Hey, things happen that way. That way. Now, why go the self-titled route here with your third album and go Rodney Rice?
Yeah, because the first 2 albums I put out. I put out the first album, and Empty Pockets and A Troubled Mind, and like I said, I had no idea. I'm still totally independent, and I still have essentially no idea of what I'm doing.
Still learning all along.
Yeah. So I was just like, well, I've made an album. I need to put it on CDs and just mail it out. I didn't do any kind of press or anything really. I just immediately released it. And I did that twice before I met some folks in the industry that said, that's not how you release an album. And yes, I was thinking of like, if I'm gonna try to release this the right way and get a team of folks together and try to do everything correctly and just to honor the project and the music of just want to represent it the best way I can. I thought, well, let's do a self-titled, try to get my name and face associated and out there. So that's why I went self-titled on the third album instead of the first one. But
hey, at least you had that opportunity, and you can kind of reintroduce yourself. And what can folks expect on this album when they get to hear it?
Yeah, I mean, I think this album has the way we recorded. We recorded a lot directly to tape, and so really analog heavy studio. And with that, it's I think really captures more like a live environment of if you listen to this album. And you see me with the band, it's gonna really represent kind of how I sound with the band now. Sometimes you get into a studio and record certain ways. You can build up a sound that isn't really indicative of what you sound live, And but this album is really has that live feel to it, and so I think it's a rocker in my opinion. I dig it. I'm happy with it.
I was gonna say I've enjoyed getting to listen to it, and like you said, it's obviously your third album. So how is it different than the other ones? Because I'm guessing some of it is just how it was recorded, but how does it differ maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first two albums and that amount of time I spent in the studio, like you said, there's obviously differences in styles of recording, which produce different results and different people and places, different players. But myself, having gone through two full albums in the studio, I came into this third one a lot more comfortable thinking about music differently, about just arrangements and right. It's definitely affected my my writing, because now just more matured as a songwriter. But
not more mature though in general, right?
yeah. And so I think it's more maybe writing for that type of more for like a band delivery. And I think a lot of the songs, the first album and even the second album, some of those songs I had probably since I was like 16 or something, 17. So it's like, I'm just writing on a porch with a guitar and not, but, writing with more of a band, and you're like, oh man, there's got organ, keys here, and, horns here. It definitely changes your ears, and you start listening like that. Man, I haven't listened to music the same since.
Well, and like you said, you got to do this one in Nashville, and you also got to probably bring in some folks that you might not have been able to before. And what was it like to kind of surround yourself with some pretty talented folks that could play some instruments and give you a little help?
Yeah, I've been lucky with even working in Austin, of just being in studios surrounded by really great musicians. I'm so lucky to have that experience, and Nashville was amazing. Going in there, like I said, kind of recording to tape, I was like, oh man, hope I'm not slowing this show down, you know. But yeah, you know, I think it was Johnny Cash. I think it was Johnny Cash that said, if you make sure that you go in the studio, make sure everyone's better than you, and it'll come out great. You know, I've always been lucky to have that principle for my albums. But yeah, Nashville it was so great, man, and they made it so easy and natural. I don't think we did more than like 3 takes on a track, you know. And I think I was just kind of adjusting levels and stuff, and then knocked it out. So it was. I was just like kind of like a sponge, just trying to learn from everyone I'm around. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's music or, you know, if you go to one of the distilleries, you know, you're talking to you go to the tour and you're talking to the distiller or the master distiller. And, you know, you see someone that has like passion and just lives for something. Man, it's contagious, and it makes you, you know, makes you better just being around them and more knowledgeable. Mm-hmm. And same thing in the studio in Nashville, especially. It's like, man, oh geez, that's the fun. The easiest part is in the studio, playing with all those great musicians. The men and women that came in were just amazing. It was such a pleasure to be around them for those days.
Well, and obviously with the release of the album, the next kind of step is to, you know, share those songs with folks and hit the road. And I think you've got some tour dates. And what's it like to get out and hit the road again?
Yeah, that's the fun part is, you know, delivering the show to folks. And, you know, it's always different. I mean, the venues change in the town, the audience is changing. And you know, playing with different players, different bands. I mean, I always don't have the same band, some variation of it, you know. That's just the fun part where you get to, you know, have that connection with people. Like if I was, you know, like I was saying, like the Raft Guide thing, you know, maybe the same river, but little things change. The people are changing in the raft, or the levels changing, or the conditions change, but you're still, you know, doing your thing. So yeah, it's great to connect with people like that, because, you know, you don't really know them from, you know, anyone else, or where they're from, or they know me through my music and their interpretation of whatever I'm singing about, you know. But there's enough common language there that connects with people, and that's the coolest thing about it, really.
And obviously, when you're getting to play live shows, and like you said, you just kind of threw out an album, and you were like, "Whoa, people are listening to this." What? Obviously, I'm guessing too. Then when you're going out and people are there to see you, that had to be a different experience as well.
Yeah, especially when folks are like singing along to the song. It's really neat. It's like, man, sometimes I'm like, oh man, I better not forget the words, because now I know they know them. You know.
Well, that's when you just you know, send it out to them, bring it back, and you're good to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, and obviously, you know, we're just getting into about the midway point of 2023. What's the rest of the year look like for you, and what are you hoping to get out of it?
Oh man, you know, being an independent artist, man, I hope this album helps, you know, just lead to more tour dates in different places, and more gigs. And that's what it's really just getting in front of more people and opening that, casting a bigger net, you know, bringing them into the Rodney Rice show. And that there's a lot of work to be done still with pushing the album, because like I said, it comes out in a couple weeks. So still push that through probably the rest of the year, and just try to get out in front of as many people as I can, and sing my songs, tell my stories, and make those connections.
Well, I think the music is there to make those connections. And folks, if you get the chance, I recommend listening to the Rodney Rice album, the self-titled album. It's worth a listen. And Rodney, I appreciate you sharing the story and sharing a drink with me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, thanks for having me. This was great. Yeah.
Find more from Hops and Spirits at hopspirits.com.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.